Rec Advisory Board will call the meeting to order. As chair, I get to do that. Anyhow, let us start with roll call.
Coiner,
Here.
Dasso, Greenlee, Who, Kefauver,
Here.
Meyer,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Powell, Schurtz,
Here.
Wittenmeyer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Our first item on our agenda is approval of the February minutes, and you received those via the internet. And so I would move approval of those minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Second. It's been moved and approved and seconded to approve the minutes. Those saying yes indicate so.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or no votes? The minutes have been approved. We have today at our meeting individuals here, and our agenda allows time now for public comment. And if there is a desire for public comment, remember that the minutes will reflect your comments, and it will be a 5-minute time period for that. So is there anyone who wants to speak? Come forward, please. Identify who you are and who you represent.
Good evening, Council. My name is Matthew Golden. I represent the neighborhood around the Windsor Crest proposed site. I wasn't here last time, so, but I was filled in on what was talked about. I knew there was some questions from your group about what we were looking at, and we ended up drawing up a proposed park kind of plan. I know that's something you guys would have final say on, but if anyone's interested, I have a couple of printouts that I'd love to share with whoever wants to look at it, kind of what we're thinking. But basically, it's nothing more than just a normal playground area with some parking spots, a dog park, a big field, and maybe an area for natural grass. I know the upkeep of parks can range probably greatly from a place like Vanderveer all the way down to maybe a park like Gaiman on the west end. That's not more than just mowing. And we don't want to be anything more than probably closer to the Gaiman Park where it's nothing more than just mowing. That's what we envision, just an area to be open. Right now, I talked with some of the members of the city council, and they were under the impression that the neighborhood has a outdoor area, and we do, but that's for members only. That's something that costs a yearly fee for anyone who chooses within a certain boundary. There's families like mine that don't join simply because the cost is a little too high. My kids are a little too young to justify going there. So right now, we don't have a park within walking distance. I have a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old that when we have a chance to drive or bike, we love to get to the city parks. We think you guys have done a wonderful job. We go to Garfield, we go to Duck Creek. We go to as far as Emi's and everything in between, and it would be nice to be able to walk to something. I know there is probably almost 1,000 residents of Davenport who live in 2 complexes of apartments to the north and south of Windsor Crest that are not able to join the pool, who would also benefit greatly from a park. And I think that the area that we're proposing is probably the last chance at something like this. If you look at the map of the city, there's not much green space left for something like this. And if it ends up falling into the hands of more housing, so be it, but we'd obviously prefer somewhere we can let the little ones run around. I know there was a question about sidewalks last time, and our neighborhood does not have sidewalks. There's not much area other than personal yards for kids to run around in. I know often, we live on a slight hill on our driveway, and often we're chasing balls into the street, other stuff like that. And it'd be nice to be able to bring my 4-year-old boy, who has probably more energy than anyone I know, up to a park area to let him just run around. We love having the playground equipment at different parks, and something as simple as that, plus some open green space, is really all we're hoping for at this point. If any of you guys have questions, if you want to save that till the next part of the business, that's fine, but that's pretty much where we're sitting at. I know you guys probably have more questions than I have information, but I'd be happy to answer anything anyone has.
Thank you. Your input will be part of our examination or evaluation feedback. And so we will have our director, or Mr. Tyson, to be able to reflect on the information from last time and your addition.
Okay,
So, thank you.
perfect. Am I able to drop off this now, or should I wait till after?
Why don't you?
Okay.
I changed your name, it's Dyson, Chison. Well, anyhow, hello. Yeah. Can you? Are there additional comments or reflections? Yes.
My name is Brian Doran. I'm also with the neighbors in the area. The only thing I would ask is that you look at a long-term view, not just today's view. If this area is not set aside for a park, there won't be one that our children and grandchildren or future generations can utilize without walking across a busy street. So this is our last opportunity, or your last opportunity, to get land set aside for a park for the neighbors. That's it for me.
Thank you, sir. Other comments? Reflections? Yes?
Knew if there was any,
If you come forward and identify yourself.
I'm sorry, I'm Bruce Weir, I'm from the neighborhood.
Okay.
My property borders the ground that we're talking about. Has there been any sale of the property? I've heard that it was sold, but I don't know if that's, is anybody in the know on that? Or would you guys know if it's actually sold already?
We'll have to ask that of our,
Okay.
yeah.
I think somebody should
Thank you.
know in the city of
That's-
Davenport whether that's sold or not, and it's pretty hush-hush, so anyways. I'd
Thank
just like
you.
to know if it's sold, because if this is all in vain, if it's sold possibly, you know? And then my other question is, once it is sold, let's say it's sold tomorrow morning, it has to be rezoned, is that correct? Because I think it's zoned agriculture right now.
Yeah, that would be, I can address these. To our knowledge, it hasn't been sold. And yes, it's zoned ag now, so any development would
Anything they do
require
there
a
other than even parks, right?
rezoning. So the process for a developer to come in, even with a preliminary plat, and I haven't seen anything. I've talked to the neighborhood, the planning department, and I think there was one interested developer a while back, but they haven't submitted anything formally in terms of a preliminary plat. And nothing's gone through P and Z at this point, so.
That answers my
Which
question.
they would typically do all that ahead of purchasing
Okay.
the land.
So in other words, they'd want it rezoned and make sure they.
They
can
want to
get
make
it.
sure they get all their ducks in a row
That's
before they
what I was really looking for.
buy the land, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. And your name, please?
My name's Sharon Levings.
Okay.
I live one house off of the cornfield there. And one of the thing what I'm hearing today that hasn't been mentioned is, yes, Windsor Crest has a park, and yes, it's not economical for families. But the part that did not get mentioned is only 150 families can be members. So I ran into a problem where I wanted to do that with my family, so my kids had a place they could walk to. And they were full. So for 3 years, I couldn't get my kids and ourselves a spot to be part of a private club, basically is what it is. So that does leave, no sidewalks from 46 Eastern, all of Windsor Crest. Yeah, we got sidewalks in Windsor Crest North, but that really does us no good, other than to walk in our neighborhood. And it would be nice to have somewhere to go with our grandkids and children. So I wanted to make you aware of that.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Other comments from you? Welcome.
My name is Jerry Scalick. I live at 1721 Westminster Circle, which is in the old part of Windsor Crest. And just a couple of notes. One, certainly reserving this as green space is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that really shouldn't be missed. Two, we should always kind of remember that here in the state of Iowa, we usually rank almost last or dead last in public land per capita, which is not something you want to brag about, I don't think, by any means. Not that this 20 acres would change that statistic greatly, but it's still a drop in the bucket. I don't have any young children right now, but I'm still a big supporter of the idea of this being parkland. It's I think, very valuable to the city. I know when I moved here 30 years ago, when I saw that green belt of Duck Creek on the map, it drew me to come to this city, actually, in many ways, or made it certainly more palatable at the time. So I just think it's a real opportunity. I don't know if there's any opportunities for funding to acquire through RDA or some other mechanism. It solely has to be City of Davenport dollars. That's for other people probably to address, but I just want to express my certainly personal support for moving forward on this and at least putting it into the mix of park space, even if it doesn't get developed beyond letting it become trees and grassland temporarily. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are we ready to, I appreciate new additional comments. It was quite complete at the last meeting, and now we have some additional information. Are we set to move on? Good. When I asked that question, Chad will be providing kind of an overview of the information that has been, processed by staff and the feedback that you had. So I'll turn it over to Chad.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I laid out in front of you a couple sheets. First, I would just start by saying everything the neighborhood is speaking of is pretty accurate, and staff would certainly agree with the need for a park in that area. So what I have in front of you, and I think I gave a couple copies for the neighbors here, is from our comprehensive master plan that we completed in 2021. The first sheet is our level of service area, and that breaks down neighborhood parks and service area. And what you can quickly note from that, I put a little box with an X in the general area of where this site is, and it clearly shows that there is a deficiency in neighborhood parks in that part of town. What's of particular interest, if you look at the overall sort of map there, in general, the community, the town, did not do very good in developing parkland as it grew north, particularly in neighborhood parks. The adjacent graph is community parks, which are our larger, more specialized type parks. Those were accounted for, but neighborhood parks, there's certainly a deficiency. So I would be in concurrence with the neighborhood that there is a need for a neighborhood park in this area of town. With that said, just further support, if you look on the second page, one of the key findings under the strengths and needs was a need for neighborhood parks, more neighborhood parks in the newer and developing parts of the community, i.e. Pretty much anywhere north of Locust. We only have a handful of neighborhood parks north of Locust. And then lastly, in the packet I gave you is just the breakdown, the comparison for National Park and Rec standards. And again, this points to a deficiency per capita acreage-wise in neighborhood parks in the city of Davenport. So from that standpoint, the master plan points to this being a plausible and needed acquisition. Some of the questions I got from some of the electeds, from city council members, is one in particular is, can the Parks Department afford to take on additional acreage and maintain it? So what we did is we broke down a comparable, we took Jersey Farms Park as our newest neighborhood park that has most recently been developed. It's about 9.5 acres. And looking at their diagram, it mimics pretty close to what Jersey Farms is. So Jersey Farms on average takes about 100 man hours to mow and maintain, and only equates to roughly about $5,500 annually in maintenance costs. So to say from that standpoint, the department is positioned to take on additional neighborhood park space, assuming, variables of what the park amenities are. When you talk about a standard neighborhood park or Jersey Farms is a comparable, a playground, some green space, maybe a shelter, internal walking trail, very simplistic. Maintenance costs rise the more specialized you get into parks, when you have other amenities that are higher maintenance level, which is not typical in a neighborhood park. So that's more reserved for our community parks, that have athletic fields or golf courses or things like that are higher cost of maintenance. So that question, we feel that from a staff perspective, this is achievable. We can take on this additional green space with minimal impact to our operations. So the other thing to note, just for a comparison, since this is 20-acre parcel, typical neighborhood park would be anywhere from an acre to 10. So it's a little bit larger area than a neighborhood park would require. But one thing to note is there is an opportunity potentially and to look at another need of the department, and that is acreage for a future site for junior theater. So we could potentially look at acquiring the 20 acres, develop a neighborhood park in a portion of it, and set aside some of the additional acreage for a junior theater complex at some point, since we are being relocated from Annie Whitmire. So there's a lot of opportunities here, and everything within our plan points to the need for green space in that area.
I want to make sure that we now, hearing that information as board members, begin to process through questions you might have, and get a sense of, from your feedback, what we should be doing at this point.
So I think after discussion, questions, we'll offer if you have any additional questions, either from us, from staff, or the neighbors, we'll be certainly happy to answer. And then after discussion, I think we would look for a recommendation from the board to send up the change to city council, whether to their support for this from the Park Advisory Board to pursue or not. And then I will relay that up to city council for consideration.
So with that in mind, input. Krista?
Is how much is the cost for the land and how much is in our budget?
Well, currently, we don't have anything budgeted, so I think that's probably the largest obstacle is the cost. My understanding is it's about 1.1 million according to the listing that I found.
My next question is, when I talked to Anna Whitmire teachers, they were really excited about the fact that the buildings were separated and they had different classes that they could teach in the buildings. So I guess the next question I have is it feasible that that would be an option on this property?
That's interesting that you got that feedback, because the majority of, at least the performing arts instructors, view the multiple buildings as a sort of barrier to the program. I think ideally, to build something efficiently, we'd do it in a singular facility, not multiple buildings. We'd have multiple classrooms within that singular building.
Jerry?
I'll just throw my 2 cents worth in. Definitely, you need a park out there, so I'm all for it. And I'm really high on junior theater too as well, because we need a better facility than what we already have, and a bigger one, because we can't get all those kids in there that want to get involved with that. So it's a win-win situation, not only for the city, but for the people that live in that park area. So I don't know when you want to vote on this to push it on, but I'm ready to do that. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Other comments? Chris?
I mean, I think it makes sense to me also to move forward, just at least to try and begin the process of reaching out to the school board and kind of filling them out for whether there's a deal to be had for community benefit. I know in the past they've sold facilities for cheaper than market rate for the right buyer. I think the maps just speak for themselves. I mean, it's hard to argue about those maps and just the huge gap of neighborhood parks. So, and it was, I think that 150 family membership for the pool recreation complex that was information I'd never heard, and that is a huge selling point against the idea of like, well, there's the Windsor Crest Club. Well, not for everybody out there, not even close. I mean, obviously the people that aren't in Windsor Crest can't join, but it sounds like clearly not even everyone in Windsor Crest can join. And that's definitely new information that I had never known. But yeah, I would definitely think we could move forward. It just provides a lot of flexibility, excuse me, if we move forward. Even if junior theater didn't end up working out, potentially half of the land could be park and half could be sold back off or something to defray the upfront costs. But like, yeah, if somebody buys it in a month, then it's done and it can't be fixed later. So I would definitely support that vote if we get to it.
Other comments or? Kristen, yes.
I'm all for it, especially, if we can lower maintenance costs, because we do have a problem with that. But as someone mentioned, we have some amazing volunteer programming that's going to be implemented soon. So if it comes to native plantings, I'm all in. You got my vote.
Are we comfortable as a board to move it on in the form of a motion? Really step up the pace. I'm hearing lots of positive remarks. So if that is true, I would certainly entertain a motion to recommend the proposal to support the Park and Rec's recommendations to become to the city of Davenport, actually, for action in the future. But that's not a formal motion, but I'm just trying to give a summary. But would someone like to entertain a motion after you've done wordsmith?
I'll motion to pass that as well.
Is there a second? Jerry?
I'll second it.
Okay. Did we write it down formally? Did you do that, Becca? You got one? Certainly? Okay. Do we want to hear the motion? Because it's one of those things you don't write out formally and you just brainstorm here. So do we need a summary, or do we have sufficient content in that motion to move it forward with a vote?
I think you can do a voice vote. We're
Okay.
good. Yep.
Well, let's do that and move it forward in that manner, maybe, hopefully. So, voice vote, what you want to do is, Arcel,
You want to do a roll call?
Yep, I'll do a roll
you
call.
ready?
Coiner,
Yes.
Dasso. Yes. Hugh. Kiefhauer,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Peterson,
Do I vote? No, not at this point, but I can say yes.
Schurtz,
Yes.
Sharif, yes. Whitmire.
Yes.
That is a very positive remark for you, and remarks from all of us, to hope that bringing that forward has, met the starting point to making that happen. So thank you for your effort, your detail, your concerns, and we'll take it to the next step. So thank you very much. We have on our agenda the outcome of our voting for the Park Development Program for 2025. So Chad will be with us in just a moment. You have to understand, I just went through 2 hours election board training for a whole new system in my mind. It's just going. Oh, I hope so, because I am just,
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we ready?
yeah, okay.
What is the status of this land at the moment?
It's for sale. It's currently listed for sale by the school district.
I mean, the school district hasn't done a deal yet, so to speak.
As far as I'm aware, there's been no purchase or sale of the property. And we would typically know, like, if a developer was coming in to look at it, they would communicate with
I
the
would
planning
think a
department.
developer would snap that up like yesterday.
School district still retains ownership at this point. Like I said, I can double check, but I'm not aware of a sale. And it's zoned agriculture right now, so again, like any developer would have to go through P and Z, and they would typically do that process first, and that would come before council usually to rezone the land. So I think we're in a good position, assuming, funding the biggest hurdle will be funding. I mean, it's a pretty big price tag for land acquisition, but it is, the neighborhood's right. The green space like that in that part of the town is very limited, and it's certainly an opportunity that needs to be considered seriously, I think, by, city council to retain green space. As a parks director and the staff, I'll speak for the staff, we're all about, sustaining and reserving green space in the community as opposed to, we're for housing and other things as well, but, our primary goal is to keep green space available, so.
Arcel, did you have a comment, please?
Chad, you mentioned funding will be an obstacle. How big of an obstacle? Like, let's be honest, right?
Well, so currently there's nothing in the 6-year CIP designated for land acquisition for parkland. If council was serious about wanting to pursue this, they would put that back probably on the finance department and staff to figure out how to potentially shuffle designated projects around and make it work. And I haven't had those conversations yet because we're still getting, your approval first and then to move it forward. But I can tell you the neighborhood has engaged with multiple aldermen. They've had lots of questions. We issued a memo a couple weeks back, similar to all the stuff I just gave you, noting that there is a need for neighborhood parks in this area. And I think the real opportunity though is the pairing with junior theater. Like, I mean, if you have a neighborhood who is a pretty large neighborhood who actively pursuing a park. We have a need for acreage for a long-term site, for junior theater, and this parcel is not far from the current theater, Annie Whitmire complex. So, I mean, I think if you couple those two things, that's a pretty powerful voice. It's just a matter if council wants to prioritize purchasing this. And then to Chris's point, you know, that's the asking price. That's not to say that's not negotiable. Like if anybody's ever purchased a home, you, unless you really want it, you probably typically don't pay asking. But, so whether that 1.1 can be worked on with the school district to bring that number down, I don't know. So, and to my knowledge, there's only been one developer that's inquired or has sort of put together any sort of preliminary concept. But then again, that has to go through P and Z to rezone. And then you have a neighborhood that will obviously probably fight that zoning because they want a park. And so, yeah, but it's just really lining up the funding has been, yeah, because the other big question from council was the maintenance impact to the department and giving that comparable to Jersey Farms, you know, we can absorb that relatively easily, assuming, you know, we keep it as simple as this neighborhood, you know, what they're requesting in the park. And then long-term, that would give us opportunity to set aside land to potentially fundraise for the junior theater complex, and build that down the road potentially, so.
Thank you. Other questions? We always start with baby steps, and I guess this is our baby step toward a great happening, I think. Yeah.
Do they have woods there like they did at the other location? I heard that was like a kind of important thing for learning outdoors.
Yeah, I think the north part of the parcel might have some tree line, but by and large, it's pretty much open field ag land right now. And the neighborhoods, there's 3 cul-de-sacs that dead end to the eastern portion of the property line. And 2 of them are cul-de-sacs. One is a dead end, similar to Jersey Farms, where I think, you know, that would probably be the main entrance to the park with a couple parking spots coming off of that. And then long-term, if junior theater were developed, we'd probably put the parking and access separate off of Eastern, you know, so lots of opportunity for sure. And it doesn't come around very often. I mean, the neighbors are pretty on point to say, unless it's way west or way north in the community, there's not a lot of green space left for park development.
Shall we move on to finding out about the results of our voting for the park development of
Yes,
fiscal year 25?
So in your packet, you have the final slate as was voted on by, or voted on by you guys as well as city council members. So essentially, unless there's any questions about the results or the projects listed here, we just need a motion to approve the slate as presented. And then we'll move on to council for final approval.
Questions at this time? If not, we'll move it forward with a motion.
I make a motion that we move this final slate forward.
Mike, second? It's been moved and seconded to approve the final slate for fiscal year 25. Those accept, yes? Say yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Opposing? Abstaining? Let's move it forward. Yay, great, great. We have staff reports in front of us also for this time. And, you know, it's like, you can tell the weather's been good when we start to read everything that's been completed. The weather has been with us, hooray, with park development and golf course issues being started and golfers enjoying. So do you have any questions that need to be forwarded in regard to this? I had one observation that I wanted to ask about. Yesterday, when I was going by Duck Creek Park, all the trees along this, by the fence line, by Locust Street, are chopped down. Do you know anything about what that was about? Thanks, Troy. You do? I went, whoa, what's going on here? The only reason I know is I had to sit for a while traffic moved because the street, part of the street was crossed off. But what do you know about that?
Sure, great question. I was just behind the chair. You probably couldn't see me back there. Forestry has been removing the dead trees on the golf courses for the last several years, especially since the ash disease. And there were several trees that were still affected that were right on that line. And then the ones that were closest to Locust, and we're talking, if you're on Locust Street on the east side, it'd be on the north side of the road. The maple trees, there was a whole row of maple trees that just aged out. That I think 4 or 5 trees. And there's already a protective fence there. So that was put up before I started. So yeah, the trees are gone. Some of them will be replaced. They'll be strategically replaced now that we know that the fence is established. Some on the golf course, some will still be on the street line. But that's what was going on yesterday. They made quite a big progress right through there.
It was amazing. It was all gone when I went through, and I went, whoa, what's going on? So it was a good time to ask the
Yeah,
question.
and those trees were all dead last year too. So they had been standing dead for over a year.
You made mention of the word dead, and down at Quinlan Court, there were still several trees. That'll be the second replacement of those trees, and they looked very dead. And I'm wondering, since they were relocating tall grasses, are they going to do something about those trees? Or, yeah, there's like at least 3 or 4 that died
Sure,
out.
so Billy Fisher, Park Operations. The Park Operations crew were busy moving some of the grasses, which we are responsible for maintenance. The trees are more of our forestry division. But as far as I know, as soon as those trees if they don't make it through the flood, forestry does have a plan every year to replace. So, I can speak for the grasses.
They were pretty dead last fall, so, but I'm willing to wait a little bit. But I thought, well, maybe they were going to just take those areas where the grasses were and just ignore that tree, where the grasses were.
That's not the intent, no.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, tell them we'll be watching. No, it's good, thank you, Billy. Other observations or things, those were just key on my point here. Are we good to move on? Yes? Okay, great. Also, we have someone right here, Chris, who has the Riverfront Commission. Is it called that still?
The Riverfront Improvement Commission, yes.
Right. So I need to say, we don't want to miss you again. Thank you.
Last month, I think I mentioned that they had an opening, and that opening is filled for the 5th Ward, so I think they're at full membership in the Riverfront Improvement Commission. We had a quite detailed presentation about the flood mitigation that's going on along River Drive. And if you go to YouTube for the RIC committee videos, if you're a nerdy person into that sort of thing of how these big vaults are being built underground where pumps can pump water, I mean, it's a pretty fascinating in-depth thing. And actually the RIC people that were there really encouraged the city to kind of make a mini documentary or something that could be easily shown to people, because it really is, it's a big public works project, and when it's done, it will be really invisible basically almost entirely underground, but it could make a really big difference for that area. And then as part of all that, they're kind of addressing some of the issues. One of the things I had pointed out was they had potentially created like a choke point along the bike path where the cruise ship trucks tend to block things, but they said they've dealt with that, and that shouldn't be a problem this year. So, and the main purpose of this project was that River Drive will be able to be open until it's slightly above 22 feet. And currently, they have to close it down there when it's between 17 and 18 feet. So that's a ton of more floods where River Drive will stay open, at least over to 3rd and 4th Street to get people through downtown, or maybe just 4th with the two-way traffic. Another thing, they approved to have a piano at the Freight House again as part of the One Sound program, which puts kind of public pianos out around the community. That'll be happening once again at the Freight House and a lot of other locations, potentially Vanderveer. I know last year, yep, looks like Vanderveer again. And then there's a Freight House focus group. They're really still trying to figure out the long-term plans for the Freight House because there's a lot of maintenance and stuff that got deferred and a lot of projects that need to happen there. So they're having kind of focus groups with the different tenants in the Freight House, and they're still trying to work out what's the best use for that. There's one currently kind of vacant storefront there. So they're trying to think long-term instead of just, getting, as soon as somebody's willing to pay for it, getting them in there. And that was pretty much all of it that relates to parks.
Do you know anything about if a current user of the facility, how much, what do I want to say? Freedom do they have in redoing the environment that might have exterior as well as interior?
I think they have to work with the city, obviously, as like the landlord essentially, but I know the diner has had interest in doing some new things with the downstairs area and the outdoor area underneath their elevated deck. And then I know the Freight House Farmers Market is kind of interested in that open storefront and potentially doing some different things there. So I think the city is doing really good the last few years about being a good landlord to the people down there and working with them. And I think Front Street obviously moved in all the brewing equipment when they went down there, and just recently the farmers market put in some windows on the north side of the building.
That's what I was asking about.
Yeah. No, the city knew about that. And those have really opened up a whole new kind of feel in there with sunlight coming in and visibility from River Drive to see this is a building with things happening in it instead of just kind of a unsure. If you're from out of town, it's just kind of an industrial looking building. You might not realize it's got this, award-winning farmers market inside. So, I think they work with people. I think if they did have a tenant for that other spot, they'd be willing to work with them to reconfigure it in whatever way they wanted.
Thank you. That triggered me because driving down towards River's Edge, if you look, we've got those beautiful murals that are painted, but then there's a whole wall of windows and you can see through and see merchandise there. And I went, when did that happen? So I wondered what control there was. Was that totally their idea then to do that? Do you know?
I do think that was initiated by the Freight House Farmers Market rather than the Riverfront Improvement Commission, but with, their agreement and cooperation.
Do take a look. It's really amazing. Oh, we have song and dance now. Thank you. Jerry will be back. Are we ready to move on to Chad's report? Do you have other things to add?
I do have a couple things to add. Just sort of an update on Junior Theater. We have a pretty promising temporary site that we are working through. At this point, I'm hesitant to let the cat out of the bag completely, but hopefully by next month, we'll have an in-depth update report on the progress in finding a temporary space. So just want to let you know. Along with that, next month, I will do an update on projects because as we roll into the spring, we have a lot of our projects either being continued or kicking off, and just give you an update of all the various improvements and things that we have going on in the parks. And then lastly, I'm going to, we have a staff member, our events, education, and aquatic supervisor, Amanda Randerson. here. She's going to take a little bit of my time to talk to you guys about the trail committee that she is working on, and with Mike and some others in the community. So Amanda, please.
Thank you. So I am working with members of the community and different organizations, and right now we are in the process of getting that going. We had one meeting already, and we did that, not this month, but last month. And we are looking to do another one hopefully here in April in regards to getting this really up and moving forward. Mike has been graciously working with me on that and making this come to fruition. Our purpose behind this is to really bring our trails to light here in Davenport. One of the things that we have been lacking is a trail committee. Some of our other lovely cities that surround us do have trail committees that are going, and one of the areas that we haven't had is our trail committee. So one of the things that we are focusing primarily on is concerns that happen on our trails or within our trails or the needs of our trails. So whether it be the trails themselves, bike lanes, or similar enhancements that are needed along our trails, that's what we're focusing on and our purpose is for. One of the great things that we already have is we already do have some funding lined up that help us in what we need to make this work. We have a grant that has been put together already between what Teresa has managed to work out along with by State Commission. The 5210 grant has already come up and worked itself out for us and gotten us $2,500 for trail signage. And so that's one of the very first things that this committee is going to figure out for us, is what is the best locations for some additional trail signage. And then we're going to continue to work on some other grants for that and figure out different places for this committee to work through. Because one of the things that we want them to do is actually be active on our trails and find places that we need some help with. So is it pinch points? Is it areas that are maybe not quite as safe as they need to be? We want to know these things and we want to be really involved in it. And so we have more than just that though, because we don't want to look at just the dangerous side of things with our Trails Committee. We want to look at the fun side too. And so we have events. We have about 10 events that are going to be happening throughout the entire year. And so we want to make sure that they're out there and helping us celebrate those events. So we want everyone involved in them if they're able to, whether it's helping promote them or actually being at those events. So one of them like being like get out and trail. And when they're there, we want them helping to explain our trail etiquette and our trail rules, as well as just being involved in general and showing our lovely faces while we're there. Another thing is explaining on our trails page is just what are all of our trails, what are the different rules again and the etiquette and all of that. So our Trails Committee has different things that they are, of course, going to be looking for when they're signing up. It's much like when you signed up to be a part of this. They're going to be signing up too. They're going to be following bylaws that are very similar to yours, just so that they can be very structured, but within a little bit more freedom, because they're not a formalized committee in the sense of having to fall under the same guidelines and all of that that you all do, because they're more of a subcommittee adjacent, we'll say it that way. So they're not to say this, but they're not meeting in the council chambers. We're meeting over at River's Edge. We're doing things a little different, but very similar. Do you have any questions for me about the Trail Committee? I tried to cover as much as we have on them for right now, because we're still in the formation stage.
That's great. Questions?
So are you asking for help?
We are going to be asking for help from all of you in helping us find these people, because what we want is we want them all to be a part of our wards, or of course, we want one from every ward and then 2 at large is what we're looking for. Yep. So if you know people who want to be involved, we would love that.
Mike? Yeah.
What's the status of the applying to be on the committee?
We have the application and we're getting ready to put it on our website. Yep.
It's already there?
It should be going live fairly soon.
Because board members might have people they'd recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is next on the website updates that I'm doing. I have a whole section of website page updates that are gonna be happening. And, Amanda has been working with me on the content, and we're gonna take the recreation trails page that is already there, it's a pretty standard page, very static, and we are gonna make it a little bit more dynamic and have more information and be able to rotate and update things as new events are coming on and as new developments with the committee, and then also highlighting that we actually have a committee now. So my goal is to have that done by Tuesday of next week at the latest.
So once that goes live.
What about running clubs and bike clubs and that type of thing? I mean, those guys are the ones that are using it all the time.
They were some of the original people at our February meeting. So
Okay.
we have contacted the running clubs, we've contacted the bike clubs, and we've contacted other organizations too that have specific use of our trails.
Or the Bix people.
Yep, they were involved as well.
Okay.
Well, it sounds like it's off to a great start. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Now, do I get my Huffy fixed? It's my bike.
I would recommend it.
Krista, did you have a question we missed earlier? Well, that's okay.
I think that was a lot, I think that was previously, but
Yeah.
no, it sounds really interesting. I'd love to get involved, so if you don't have a third ward representative, I'll definitely look into it.
Right now, all we have is Mike, and he's kind of PAB QC Bike Club adjacently doing it. So yeah, we're yeah.
The one thing like Jerry's question, each ward would be patterned just like this, so every board member here could tell somebody in your ward, it can be a runner, a biker, anybody that would use trails.
Yes.
And then, other organization, I have to remember, it's a Davenport Trails Committee, but the other organizations will advise and give us information. So this, when it's done, when Amanda has it all done, it should be structured just like this.
Yeah.
So if you know somebody, it doesn't have to be a person that bicycles, it can be a runner, jogger, walker, anybody in your ward. Steer them, you're gonna have that up, and they can apply online.
And then what we're gonna do is
So
we're
it's
also
truly a recreational thing, not just for bicycling.
right. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring in those organizations whenever there's like a big question. So say Bix is coming around, we're gonna bring in the Bix group specifically to help educate us on the Bix. Or if RAGBRAI's coming in, we'll bring in Visit Quad Cities to educate us on RAGBRAI, so that we're educated on it and how we can help make it even better.
So if I want to talk to someone in my ward, I need to have the complete information so I can explain to them exactly what their options are to get involved with this.
Yep.
Am I correct?
Yeah,
So that's all going to be on that website?
yes, it will.
So all I have to do is say, go to this website?
That's
So as
right.
soon as I find it, I'll know all that information.
We'll get it to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I made a note to let you guys all know once we have that up, so that with a direct link, so that you are able to share that.
Other questions? Shall we move on? Oh, yeah, okay. Anthony?
You had mentioned some of the other community-based resources like the QC Bike Club. Are there any of the other Quad Cities that maybe already have like a Trails Advisory Committee that you guys could collaborate with, or does that not exist yet?
We've worked with Bettendorf's Trail
Okay.
Committee. They're one of the largest in the area, so we've worked a lot with them on it.
Okay, perfect. I was just curious to use that as a resource.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. We have an opportunity to offer suggestions for future meetings as part of our advisory time. We've done a lot of other things today, so are there any suggestions after you read that item on the agenda? For me, Chad, I think, mentioned what's going to happen next month, and I just said, update on the master plan in relationship to everything that's been happening. You know, we've got a sense of where master plan falls in our action that we took today on approving, but I'm just wondering how things have shifted since all of these changes have occurred in the parks, et cetera. So that's what I would consider part of a master plan update, and I assume that's going to be what you're doing. That's my suggestion.
Correct.
Okay. Other? Krista? She keeps.
My question is more for the Riverfront Improvement Commission, so this might be one you might have to ask at the next meeting. I've been in a lot of the Riverfront meetings and what they're planning on doing within the next 6 years, decade plus. But are there any talks between these flooding dump areas or water flood areas with implementations such as hydro engines or vortex engines? So we can implement energy that goes towards the city. And I think that's been the main question since we're on the largest lock and dam in the world. Has there been talks thereof, or I guess I'm very curious about that.
There definitely has not on the Riverfront Improvement Commission since I've been going to their meetings. I know there was a kind of a big write-up, it's probably been 10 plus years ago now in the Quad City Times about the kind of recent development of like low drop, I think they call it, because in the distant past you had to have like a big dam with a lot of like fall distance to make power, but I think other communities have done some stuff with dams more similar to ours, so I can pass that along. I don't know, I don't think that's in their wheelhouse necessarily, but I don't know who would be the right group to push that. Maybe RIC.
If they're curious, I know people that implement them nationally, and if they want meetings or, whatever it is, but I think that's gonna be really important for the city in the future to come, if possible.
Yeah, I'll pass that along.
Thank you. Other ideas on advisory board? The first place that Krista, when she mentioned that, would that be part of the Corps of Engineers work?
Yeah, I was probably thinking that'd be a good question for the Corps. But Riverfront Improvement, I think, is a starting place if there's ever been any conversations, so.
We do have a retired Corps of Engineers guy
Right.
on
Yeah.
our committee now, so.
Good, good. With that being said, I would think that we're reaching the end of our thought process and suggestions. So,
Yeah, I just wanted to say
there he is. Thank you.
that we got that award for having the best baseball diamond in the country. All right, good job, guys.
Yes, Modern Woodman Park.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. With that being added, and we'll move to our next item, which is a motion to adjourn our meeting for today. Is there
I'll move to adjourn.
a second?
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Those that say aye, say aye.
Hi.
Do I hear anything other than that? We are adjourned. Remember that I have one comment. I was hoping that the new catalog, I don't know if any of you have it, but there are copies at River's Edge, but you can also get it online. So be sure to check out the Spring Summer 2024 catalog. So that's out and ready to go. And with that, I'll say, see you in April. Bye.